Check, check. Here we go. Round two. Festus, thanks for coming on, man. Hopefully the tech gods are on our side on this one. Let's
Yeah.
let's rock this, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show, brother. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you. The technical difficulties be damned. We're doing this, okay?
Yeah. That's the thing about it too. It's like after doing this for a while, you really realize that that's just part of it. It's part of the game, and sometimes you get the tech difficulties, and you just got to roll with it, right? University of adversity. That's part of it too.
Just about to say. I was just gonna say. I was like, man, you're already used to. We're talking about adversity, and if you kind of have to be somewhat used to it to be able
Yeah.
to start a podcast like this, and you got to be able to respond to it. So
Yeah, man.
appreciate you being patient.
Absolutely, man. So, you know what? I want to really get into your story, because right now we'll come back and talk about rebuilding the beast, what you're up to right now. I know you've been training in Germany, you've been, rehabilitating and all that. Let's talk about that in just a minute. But for all of the people, a lot of the times, we see them in the media, see them playing sports, professional athlete, whatever it is, and we don't really know how they got there. You kind of see them shining, doing well, but we don't know the behind the scenes. And what I really want to do is kind of like pull back the curtain and kind of like learn more about your story for a lot of the people that probably don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. For all the new listeners, just getting to know you now for the first time. I would love if you could start right back in the beginning and maybe walk us through what it was like for you, a young man growing up, and how a little bit of the journey on how you got into basketball and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Well, I was born in. My name is Festus Ezeli. I was born in Benin City, Nigeria, and getting into basketball that was never a goal of mine. That was never a track that I was in of any sort. It kind of happened upon. I was an academic kid, kind of a smart kid. My parents pushed me in school. Both parents very. They had high ambitions for me. I'm the first son, first child, and they always wanted me to be this upstanding person. And I felt that pressure a little bit. I graduated high school really early. I graduated 14, and immediately after I graduated high school, they sent me to America. They wanted me to become the first doctor in the family, which was kind of always I always knew this was what I was going to do. Graduating that young, you always like you never know where you fit in and what's going on, and so being able to adapt to the school the way I did at the time also helped me later when I moved to America. I moved to a city hour north of Sacramento to live with an uncle of mine who was a doctor as well. And so I left Nigeria, I left my family, and I came here. I came to America actually because I had this dream of going to medical school.
Hmm.
And like I said, basketball only came in later. Actually, it was supposed to be a tool to help me pay for school. My uncle saw me and talking about our plans, he said, well, he was trying to convince me. You should play basketball. And I'm kind of a chubby kid. I'm not an athletic kid at all. A little clumsy, actually. Very shy. So everything about basketball was I was anti everything basketball. And he was like, yeah, you never know, man. You never know. Just try to do it. We could get you a scholarship to go to college. And even in trying to convince me to play basketball, he actually takes me to a game. He takes me to an NBA game when I came to visit him, when I came to live with him.
What was the
And
game?
it was the Los Angeles Lakers versus Sacramento Kings. And it's my first time. I had always heard, even back in Africa, I had heard about Kobe Bryant, you know, and it was just so crazy to me that I was here. and watching this game. It was everything and more for a kid. I couldn't play basketball. So every skill on the basketball court was amazing to me. Dribbling the ball but between your legs was like magic, you know. Dudes dunking was like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're actually doing this. And so watching a guy like Kobe Bryant, the skill, the intensity, just everything about him, it just, the way they describe Michael Jordan is the same way I felt when I watched Kobe Bryant. That aura that you see around somebody who's so great. So, so during this game, my uncle turns to me. And the only reason why this part of the story is important is because you just never know, right?
Mm.
And so you never know the power of the spoken word. And so my uncle turns to me and says, you never know, maybe someday you'll be here on the court. And it was just like, I think he said it maybe even in jest, just, hey, you never know. And I looked at him like, yo, what are you even talking about? It's like me telling you, maybe you'll be Superman. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, what are you
Yeah.
even talking about?
He planted a seed for you there.
He planted a seed. Absolutely. And after this, he signed me up. So I told you I graduated high school in Nigeria at 14. And so when I came to America, um, my uncle actually convinced me to go back to high school so I could learn how to play basketball.
Mm.
And so I go back to high school. And the worst part about this whole thing is I go back to high school, I've already graduated. And so it was almost like, oh, you're too young to go to college. Well, when I'm in college, when I'm back in high school, I'm in all honors and AP classes, right? So I was redoing this thing with the hopes of playing basketball. I end up not making the team because I didn't know anything about basketball. That was really the part that we overlooked a little bit. And I go from that point in my life to meeting, I'm trying to think of a short way to tell you this story. I meet a guy, like a random guy. It's like I call him an angel, a guardian, something. And one day he comes to visit my school. This is the high school. And he sees me, and he's talking to the basketball coach at the time. And the basketball coach, they were walking through everything that was going on that season. He said, you guys are going to be really good this year. The coach says yes, and he points to me. This man. His name is Keith Audister, and Keith. He points to me and says, "Yo, you guys have a big kid this year. You're big." At the time I was, 15 years old. I was 6'5", maybe.
Wow.
And the coach was like, "No, he's not any good." And so this guy comes up to me. Actually, matter of fact, this is how the story goes when he tells me the story. He says he's walking with the coach, and the kid says, "You guys are gonna be really good this year. You got a big kid now." He said the coach responds, said, "We're gonna be good, but not because of him." He said, what are you talking about? Like, can he run?" Coach says, "Yeah." "Can he jump?" The coach says, "Yeah." "What's the problem?" Coach said, "He can't chew gum and walk at the same time." And so he says, "Yeah, can I have him?" He's like, "Sure, do whatever you want." So this guy, Keith, comes up to me, big burly guy, and he says, "Hey, do you want to play on my AU team?" You know, and I'm not interested at this point. I know, I already realized that I'm not good enough. So I give him some excuse. Oh, no, I'm not. So he gives me his card. He says, "Call me if you're interested in doing this." Well, long story short, um, I played with this guy's team for 2 years. It's a travel team, just a summer ball team.
Mm.
And I played with his team for 2 years. And during that time, I leave the high school. I go to a junior college. I'm the video guy for the basketball team in the junior college. And 2 years of what you would call obscurity. And before I knew it, I was top 150 kids under 18 in the country.
Wow.
Now, it sounds good, but I'll tell you two different defining moments for me during that time. One of them was I scored my first basket against my own team. That was I mean, if you think that you've been embarrassed before or I mean, I don't want to bring up any childhood traumas here, Lance, but I'm sure you've had your own different things. This was very, very, I mean, I told you I was a very shy kid. So playing in front of a crowd is already hard enough.
Mm,
But being the person that messes up this badly, because I didn't know the rules of the game, I didn't know that at halftime, you switch ends of the court. So for me, I was just like, and so having Keith there with me to hold me and say, hey, you're gonna be okay. Just keep working. That was one of the moments for me. And had he took me to workouts and took me to workouts with his kid. And he was like my little brother. His son is Kyle Artister, and he was like a little brother to me. And we both did all these, all these trips and we played these games together. During this time, I just was getting better. I was getting better at the game and just getting better at controlling my limbs, to be honest, because I was just very lanky and I didn't really know what I was doing. And as I started to get some confidence in myself, having a person who's like a father figure to you is always important for a kid who's a teenager. 2 years later, I was invited to a top 150 kids camp in the country. And I just couldn't understand how that was possible.
wow.
After that camp, I had 32 scholarship offers. You know, that number changes because I honestly, I just didn't really, I just, 32 was the number I remember where I stopped counting, to be honest.
Mm,
And I started off with a dream and really no direction. And God just kept bringing people into my life and situations that gave me the ability to go to college. The dream was still to be a doctor.
mm,
So I I stayed on that path, and I wanted to pick a university that had a great medical school. And at this point I was starting to enjoy basketball, so I wanted a good balance of both basketball. So Vanderbilt was my choice. I chose it because I really wanted to go to Stanford at the time. And Vanderbilt was like they call it the Harvard of the South, right? Good basketball program, good um, academics, and it was a good, it was top 15 at the time, and it's still, I think it's 13 now. So anyway, besides that, so I go to Vanderbilt. I was there. I started off as a practice player my first year because even after being top 150, all the kids at this level of basketball now are all still they're that and above. So I started off my first year and I'm a practice player. By my third, fourth years in college, I'm the team captain. I'm all conference, and I was blessed enough to be able to win an SEC championship. And we beat Kentucky and Anthony Davis, who actually just won an NBA championship this year. And yeah, it's just my journey has always been this constant rebuild, right? Got to the NBA. I was drafted. I can't believe that I was drafted to the NBA after this, but I was, and it's a testament to the work put in. I put in a ton of work. I had amazing teammates in college, and there was just this drive to just keep getting better to see how far I could go. And I made it. I was a first round pick for the Golden State Warriors,
it's amazing.
and yeah, it was a dream come true. At this time, I guess I put the medical school dream to the side uh, at some point there. And you can interrupt me at any point
Yeah,
to
I
ask.
there's a lot I want to unpack there, but I want to make sure that so okay, well let's pause there. What I really want to dive into with what you just told me is what was it that Keith instilled in you to believe in yourself to get through when you were doubting yourself? Because, you know, when these things happen, it's so easy, especially when we're young, to just say, "Oh shit, I'm done. Like I am not capable of this." We talk ourselves out of these things, and you see it all the time, right? But what was it what did he install in you? Like, what were the things that you took from that kept you going? Because your whole story is resilience. You've had this ability to keep going.
Mm.
How did you develop that? Was that from your parents growing up, or is that along the way? Was Keith a big part of that? That's where I really love to dive into, because it's so easy when we get to that level, because I played hockey. I wanted to make it pro, but I never had the belief that I could do it. If it looked hard, I was like, oh, there's it's impossible. It's 1 in a million. You hear all these people talking about stats. It's impossible to make it pro sports, but it's like you just take it piece by piece, one day at a time, one level at a time, one team at a time. And it really is about belief. How did he install that in you? Like, what are some of the things that you worked on to keep that dream alive, to keep that persistence alive?
Okay, so this is a really, really, really good question. And I was talking, we make this joke all the time in my household. There's this feeling that we have. Maybe it's also why I was good in school. We would have these exams back in the day, back in school, whatever. We would have our exams. And when I was younger, I was very fast in my class, right? When I was, I skipped grades, fourth, fifth, sixth grades, I skipped. I went straight to the seventh grade
Wow.
because I was so much farther ahead than everybody else. My mom was always pushing me at home, right? Not necessarily pushing me, but she would always educate me. My English was farther along. My math skills, all these different things. She already taught me these things at home. She was an educator. She was actually a lawyer, but then she became an educator at some point. And I didn't go to her school, but she was always, how do you teach somebody else's kid and not teach your own? So that was always her thing. She always wanted me to be, you know, everything I could be. So I remember I would start always first in my class because they would rank you in school. And I would always be first in my class. And I remember a few times I would come in second. I think I came in third. And I remember my parents' reaction, actually my dad's reaction. My dad always used to say this. He said, the person that came in first in your class, does he have two heads? That was this idea of what makes that person better than you.
Mm.
And there was always this idea of competition, and it's still there to this point. I always have that idea that if you give me enough time, I could get really good at something, and I turn it into a competition. Well, this showed up later in my life as well because they told me I couldn't play basketball. Now I wanted to quit. I was like, this is too hard. I don't know what I'm doing. This is the mountain is way too hard for me too high for me to climb. And I remember I came home one day to my uncle. I was like, especially I just got cut from the high school team. He signed me up for this high school, and I got cut. And I told my uncle I don't want to do this anymore. And my uncle was like, yeah, you weren't any good at it anyway. Yeah, don't worry about it. It was going to be too hard for you. And he knew what buttons to push for me. He knew that I wasn't going to let it go. And this is where, at this point now, the next day I went and bought a hoop and I put it in front of my house. And after this, I just started working on my game. I wouldn't say this is what really pushed me over the edge. I think having somebody like Keith, who was a mentor, who would put his arms around me when I messed up in games. Like I'm trying, but I score in the wrong hoop my first game. What do you do after this? Because this is the adversity moment now. This is like,
Yeah.
where do you go from here?
A lot of people would just like fold the tent, man.
Yeah.
People would go, I'm just that's the pivotal point right there. Right?
This is why mentors and parents are so important
Mm.
because he put his arms around me and said, you know, all these people are going to be calling you later. You got to keep working. So I remember there was a workout that I did with his son. In the middle of this workout, I quit. Like this is like 30 minutes into the workout, I quit. I laid on the floor and like I can't go anymore. And I remember his son keep going. He kept going even though he was tired. And later on, Keith comes to pick us up and he hears about this and he chews my butt all the way back. We're driving from Nevada, Reno, back to Sacramento. He chews my butt all the way back. And at some point he was like, yo, you have to understand the things that people said about you back then. Don't let that be true. Don't let the things that they said about you, all those people laughing about you, don't let them be right.
Mm.
And as much as he was upset at me, he was upset for me. He's like, yo, you have to want this thing. You have to work hard. And I never quit a workout again after that.
Mm.
You know, it takes these little moments. There's no one defining moment that says, oh, now I've made it and now I'm impenetrable to, you know, I don't think about, I don't doubt myself anymore. You have moments and you have little things that test you. And I keep coming upon these things, but because of the previous battles that I faced, I think it's easier for me to make that decision now, or I'm more sure that I can keep making this decision. But yeah, having a mentor like Keith was really important for me at that point.
What did you see in Kobe that really made him different? Because obviously he was amazing, but a lot of people people don't get that experience to really like when they're playing in the NBA and to see what it's
Mhm.
like. What did he do differently than the rest? Like what are some of the real specific things like that you notice later that you're like that makes somebody exceptional versus like just the regular pros? Like what makes them that much better and that much, much more of a force of nature?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is synonymous with Kobe Bryant's name is hard work. Work ethic for him was number one. When I got to researching who this person really was, because but I was a basketball fan. I just knew Kobe Bryant because kids in Africa would throw the paper in the trash and yell Kobe, just like everywhere else. This is what he meant to the game of basketball.
Yeah.
But as I started to do my own research and see him, I was like, this person he's unrelentless. He doesn't, or he's relentless. He he does not he doesn't quit, you know, and you would see things like, you know, he had a game where he just had, you know, he had an obscene amount of points, and then he flew to the next city and he was in gym at 3 a.m. in the morning because he was still upset about his
Really?
performance. Like, he had this crazy high expectation for himself, and people asked him all the time of the expectation of the crowd, and he said nobody's ever going to have more or higher expectations for me than I do of myself. These are things that you can emulate as a young guy, right? Because if you see that the greatest in the NBA is working this hard, what excuse do you have if you're sitting here trying to make it in your college team,
Mm.
right? This is why also these role models are important, because if you understand what their journeys are and what they're working through, you know, I'm not one of those guys that enjoys, like, I don't like people putting filters on things and making and talking about the glitz and glam. I want you to tell us what your real story is.
Mm.
And Kobe was never shy of doing that. He would always tell us what was going on. Granted, he didn't want to tell everybody how much he was working because he didn't want people to steal his secret, but you would know because you would hear it from everybody. You would hear it from the janitors. You would hear it from his teammates how much he pushed them. And so that, I think, just that standard that he set of a work ethic was something that we can all admire.
Yeah. And even watching The Last Dance with Jordan and seeing the behind the scenes of like the level of excellence that they demand of themselves. It's
Mhm.
unbelievable. People just think, "Oh, they're just great because they got lucky or something." But it's like the work that it takes to get there is incredible.
Yeah, greatness is not this like esoteric thing. And I used to think
Yeah.
that people that won were godlike creatures, that
Yeah.
they were just born for this. Until you see around you, the more that I read, the more that I watch, like you talked about The Last Dance, it's little decisions. It's
Mm.
Michael Jordan getting to college and saying, who was the best player? I want to work just as much as him. I'm going to work just like him. And the coach asking him, if you say you want to be better than him, why would you want to work just like him? He said, okay, I will work harder than anybody who's ever come here, who's ever been in the school. And they show that through their actions. It's not just saying it. Everybody doesn't get to do that because it's really tough. It's hard to be great.
Mm. Yeah, the level of commitment is insane. What so with your journey, like with coaches and leadership, you know, what makes a good leader to you? Like what makes a good coach? Out of all the coaches and all the leaders that you've had, like what was the thing that made them great versus, because a lot of coaches, they have like fear tactics and people start to tune them out, and it's not necessarily the best style, but then there's some that are just encouraging and just like they really pull out the best of you, and I admire coaches that can really see the gift in people and really pull that out of them, right? What about that for you? Like, what were some of the things that really stood out as a coach that really like pulled you to your to the best that you could possibly be?
I think the best one of the best qualities of a coach is the ability to connect with whoever you are trying to lead,
Mm,
right? Physically, emotionally, like you just have to be there with them mentally, right? And there's a selfless nature that leaders also have. This like I really care about my guys. I care, and people can feel it. I've been lucky at every stage of my career, whether it's college, whether it's in the NBA. I've been lucky to have coaches that really cared for me.
mm,
And when people care about you, like I'll give you an example. So when I was in college, before I chose Vanderbilt, I had this meeting with my coach. This is when I was in high school, when I was trying to pick a college. And I remember I was sitting in this car. He and I were sitting in the car and we were trying to figure out coach, what do you want from me? And he's asking me, what would you like from me? And I told him that I wanted to redshirt my first year. I had never been on an actual team, an official team. I had only played on this travel team, which changes every tournament. We had different players. And I said that this is my first time being on a team. I want you to teach me how to be on the team. And he sat there in that car. He promised me, I will teach you, and I will also treat you like you're one of my sons. I'll push you, and if you're willing to work, I'll make sure that you're your highest potential, whatever it is. Okay. So when we got through with that conversation, I felt comfortable enough. I was like, okay, this is where I want to be. Now, if I knew at the time what he meant by "I will push you," I don't know if I would have chose that. But that's not. To be honest. So when we were in college, he every day in practice he would be on like on me every day in practice. And at first, when I started in college, I was kind of fumbling. I was doing, I was kind of messing things up because I was nervous and I was dealing with these things. And after a while, I started to get it. But what really changed for me is one day I went into his office. This is about end of my first year, and I was like, dude, what's going on? Why am I the person that you pick on the most? Every time, every drill, I am the person. I feel like I'm a scapegoat. This is not okay. And he said something. Actually, no, this was my sophomore year. Uh, um, and so I said that to him, and he kind of looked at me with like this almost like how a father would look at his son, like almost looking at the prodigal son, right? And just love and care. He said, if I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything. If I didn't see it in you, I wouldn't push you.
mm,
But I really believe in you. I think that you can be the best player we have here. And when you hear me yelling at you, there's a quote that he told me. There was a way he put it, and it was along the lines of the people that you push the most are the ones you care about the most. And if I stop, you should be worried if I stopped saying anything to you because it means I've given up on
It's a good point. Yeah.
you. And I think a lot of times you need that perspective change. That's what leaders do. To help you see things from the other perspective. They give you like this extra boost to be able to take the hits or to be able to push yourself farther to get to that end goal. And he was right. After that, I never complained anymore. Matter of fact, I that's one of the reasons I think people sometimes get frustrated because they can't really get to me, right? It gave me this crazy thick skin of it gave me this thick skin of a shell because now I enjoyed it. I wanted him to come and get to me. I loved it when in practice my team would be winning and he would switch me to the other team because it was that Michael Jordan thing, right? He was pushing me, he was priming me, he continued giving me that killer instinct. And by my senior year, by my junior year, I was a team captain. And we were champions by my senior year. The first time in 60 years, my school had won. And to say that it happened just because of me, that's not the truth. But the way I see it sometimes is like, I was the kid that they said shouldn't even be here. And having these mentors, having these situations, and then also being a kid that takes coaching, right? Because a lot of people can't take it. They don't want anybody to tell them what to do.
Their ego gets in the
Right?
way, right?
Ego. And I felt like, I think that coming from where I came from, I think that it was a blessing for me because I knew that I didn't know anything. So I wanted to listen. I wanted to learn. Teach me what you know. Let me learn. And then I can figure it out. And so having the coach push me that way, having the coach explain it to me and understanding that he cares, I think that's what made me understand that he was a really good leader. And then, he brought out things in all of us that made the sum of our parts greater than the sum of the individual components. So the sum was great, and we ended up accomplishing amazing things. So I think that's what a leader is.
Yeah, and I've tried to unpack this myself and just see like what I see in other people as being um inspirational or somebody that's makes you want to take action even, and it's like a mutual respect. You need to have that respect for the person, it's like if you don't gain that respect, it's really hard to really want to go out of your way, it's to for the team, and I think a lot of times that's a missing piece. It's like that trust is so important, right? And that comes from listening, that comes from like really finding out about players, and like that's what, for me, I've always looked at it. I was like, why is there certain people that I connect with and that I want to work hard for, and there's some that I'm just like, I don't care, and it usually comes down to the trust.
Yeah, so this is actually a good topic too, because don't expect things from other people that you're not willing to put yourself through as
Mm.
well as a leader. And as a leader, you don't, it's like this picture on Instagram where you have a leader and he's standing on, what was it? It was like, there was like everybody's pushing a boulder or something. And the leader is standing, there's like two kinds of leaders. One of them is the guy who's holding a whip and whipping it. And the other guy who's the one standing in front and saying, this is how we push it, guys. And I think that's really the second picture is the leader to me.
Mm.
That is how you gain the trust. You have to be in the fire with the guys. The day we won the championship, my coach just sat on the ground. I remember this vividly in my head, and he's crying. Like, he put as much into this process as anybody else. He was the best X and O X and O offense guy I've ever seen in my life. And it was just with the time that he put in. And so when you see somebody care that much about the process, about you guys as a team, and about just the outcome, I think that also makes you want to go above and beyond, you know.
How many times were you counted out with injuries? Like how many times was that like, oh, you're hurt? Like even within yourself, the dialogue, like I'm hurt, I'm battling. Like how many times did you have that thought that you weren't going to be able to get through? Because a lot of people, let's be
Mm.
honest, go through an injury and they're done. They don't heal properly, they give up on themselves, other people give up on them. I mean, how many times have you had to really bounce back and have that conversation with yourself to keep
Uh,
going?
okay, I'm gonna be honest here with this one because, there's a certain level of, I won't call it naivete. It's like a brutish, would I even call it perseverance? It's just this idea that I just feel like I'm indestructible, right? There's this
I love
feeling
it.
sometimes that, yeah, I used to have that. I think that, I remember when I was in college, um, I had an injury when I was there, and that was my first time being injured. This is my senior year, and it was something that was, really tough for me to come back from. But before that, I was just looking, and I think they thought I was done. Like they thought I couldn't come back from this. And I've always been this guy that just like, let's see what happens. I have a best friend who gets mad at me sometimes because he's always the person for me. Whenever I'm about to do something, he comes to me. He's the voice of reasoning. Hey man, maybe let's think about this for a second. And then whenever he's about to do something and he asks me, I'm like, yo, just do it. And he was like, yo, what is wrong with you? Why don't you ever tell me? Why don't you be my voice of reasoning? I was like, yo, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table. That's not my job. I'm always going to want to push the envelope and see how far we can go. And for me, that's something I kind of always have understood is that like I know that I can go farther than I believe that I can sometimes. Um, so I've been counted out. I've been counted out multiple times, but like I said before, the reward that you get for overcoming one battle is, it's not like you get to win this race called life. And I understand that. So I just know the next time I hit a hurdle that I'm stronger because of the other things that I've overcome in the past. So yeah, I've been doubted, and I keep getting doubted, but it's okay because that's, as long as God keeps giving me the strength to come back and the strength to keep going, I'm okay with it. Makes the story even greater.
That is the key that so many people miss is like understanding and not being a victim to the situation. Like realizing that this thing is going to make me better, right? Because a lot of people want the easy road and anything comes in the way, they quit. And it's like realizing that that bump in the road is going to be the thing that's going to elevate you to the next level. Because if we stay the same, we don't grow. We don't have any challenges, we don't grow, we don't get anywhere.
I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm always all Superman though, because there are moments. There are moments like, yo, like, can I really make this?
Mhm.
I had a moment like that last night where I just was like, man, like, is this really worth it? I'm talking with Keith actually,
Mhm.
who's a mentor of mine now, still to today. And I said, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, it's really hard. And he gives me some advice and gives me some, inspiration. But then I get on my phone and I'm on Instagram and I'm looking through some stuff, and I see, it was a young girl. Right? It was a I follow I started a page Rebuilding the Beast, and,
Yeah.
and based on your history and the things that you like, and they show you a bunch of other things like that. So I follow a lot of inspirational pages, follow a lot of people who are incredible, who are inspiring. And I happened upon this girl. I've never seen this before. It was a, um, what do you call when, she was an amputee, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
she had the metal rods, and she was a little girl. She had she couldn't be any more than 8 years old. And I saw her dancing, with the rods. And in my head, when I see something like that, it just automatically switches. It switches back from, no, I can't, there's no way. I can't be ungrateful for the opportunities that I have. At the end of the day, I have my legs, and I've been able to come back from injuries. I have my arms, and I'm able to do all these things. And so it gives me the inspiration to push through those dark days, knowing that there's other people out there who are fighting, who are inspiring their own journeys and in their own ways. And so for me, I just know, like, if I can, why not? I'll keep fighting the battle. Um, and then if I can't, then I move on to the next battle. I'll move on and go do something else. But I don't want to ever be in this situation where I'm complaining and whining about my situation, because the little girl's not complaining. She's dancing,
Yeah,
So what am I wasting my time and energy for?
totally. Yeah, it's the switching to kind of focusing on what you do have versus what we don't. But that's human nature, man. Everybody goes through that, right? But it's good to be able to switch out of it.
That's it's
That's the key thing.
you're never ever gonna be you're never gonna be free of it. You
Yeah.
never stop yourself. You're never ever gonna have a feeling of um what do I do here?
So you're obviously no stranger to the resilience as we talked about, and fighting back and battling back to get to where you want to go. Walk us through your journey right now, because that is super inspiring, right? To be able to get through an injury and to want to come back and to be the best than ever. So how how has that been for you? How has your journey been? You're in Germany, you're training, you're getting things back. Talk to us about what is going on in your mind, and what has been some struggles for you. Like, what has been the hardest part about this journey of coming back?
Hmm. Well, my my journey took me into the NBA, and to the one of the at the time one of the worst, actually the worst team in the NBA. And this team actually became the best team in the NBA. I won an NBA championship, you know, my third year in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Went to another NBA championship the following year. We broke the record. We were
Yeah.
broke the Michael Jordan Bulls record of most wins of all time. And we end up losing the NBA Finals after being up 3-1, right? And they still talk about it today. Shortly after that, I had an injury, and it put me in a wheelchair for 6 months. And this was a tough injury to come back from. I was scared that I wasn't going to walk again. I was scared for a lot of reasons. Basketball initially was the least of my concern. And here I am 2.5 years later, um, working on an NBA return. Um, when I left, or when I played my last NBA game, I was 26, and now I'm 31. And it's there's a lot to unpack. There's so much. Haven't played in a while.
Mm.
Um, have had to gain all my muscle back from my legs, which I lost everything. I had to learn how to walk again. Um, I've had to see numerous and countless doctors, and I've been through so much. I think that the things that I deal with now are, um, when we talk about doubt, it's like, do you think you can do it again? Do you think yes, I accomplished all these things in the past, and I started playing when I was 16, and I was cut from a high school team, and then 6 years later, I'm drafted into the NBA. This is a journey that you don't hear very often. This is a story you don't hear very often. And so I've defeated and I've beaten the odds in a massive way. But when you hear the odds again of you playing not being so high, you you start to wonder, like, can I do this? Can I don't know. It's taken so long. I don't know if I can. I'm older now. Do I still, do I still love the game like I did at that point? I think if the answer is yes to your love, and you still have that fire for something. I actually just posted something about that on my Instagram today. Is if you can't stop thinking about it, you owe it to yourself to fight for it. And I think when I think about it from love instead of fear, then I just know that I owe it to myself to see how far I can go. And so I push myself. I see, let's see where we can do what we can do with this. And so my fears, they just help me remind these fears come up and these doubts come up. It just reminds me of what I'm feeling inside. I have to really like, okay, why am I doing this? And I understand that when I have a strong enough why that I can endure anyhow. That's Nietzsche. So that's my feeling about that.
What was it like when you won the championship? First of all, the playoff grind. What did you learn from that and becoming a winner? And because once you win, I've heard from many people, it's just ingrained in you, that feeling of winning. You learn so much. Your team becomes so tight. You learn so much about what you're capable of, and you
Mm.
want that again, right? I mean, talk us through that journey and what that team had and what you learned about yourself, basketball in general, and what you walked away with after winning that championship, mentally, physically. Like, walk us through that journey a little bit, because a lot of people don't really get that insight into like what it takes.
I used to believe that championships were for other people. They were for these great gifted God. Like I said before, like you think all these things are meant for somebody else. You think that the people who do these amazing things are born for it. Um, the fact that I got to experience this, I can't explain. There's no words that I can put together in this next 20 minutes to tell you what it feels like. I just know that I remember this deep feeling of after we won. Because to get there, you have to remember, like we were a rookie. Like I got into the NBA to this team who was the worst, and all of a sudden Steph Curry gets healthy, Klay Thompson gets healthy. We're rookies coming in the game. This is me, Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, and so we're trying to we're like we can play in the NBA. Like we're winning games, so we have these dreams and lofty goals that someday we're gonna win a championship. And people are doubting us. Even the first time we make the playoffs, they're like, they'll never make the playoffs. We made the playoffs. They're like, oh, they'll never win a game, and then we won a series, and they're like, they'll never. So it was this constant. You're always fighting doubt, and you have to be strong inside to be able to fight it outside. And so we had this team cohesiveness that was so great. We had a lot of good guys on the team. Um, we had our motto that we said all the time was just us. It's just us out here. It's just us and our fan base. Nobody else believes in us except us. And having a good team like that also helps you get through those losses, those tough times, because everybody goes through it, right?
Yeah.
And the difference between the great teams and the not so good teams, it really is like a few game difference. It's situational differences. It's not everybody in the NBA can play basketball. Everybody's great,
Mm.
right? But it's little things, just like in everything else. The people that are great and the people that are good, it's just like one little decision to go a little bit harder. You know, and in terms of a team cohesiveness, one decision to not make a selfish move, or one decision to maybe make an extra pass to make your teammate feel better, or to make the team flow on the court go better. So the next game is, because it's always long-term goals, right? And what it felt like to win the championship, we had four. I'm trying to remember the four goals that we had, or the four um, our, um, Steve Kerr had these four things that we always had to play with. It was like competitiveness, compassion for a basketball team. Think about that. Um, love. Um, and these four mottos were the things that we lived for these things. And so it created a team bond that couldn't be broken. And we always felt like the next man up was supposed to give as much effort as the first guy in the game. The first guy was supposed to be as selfish as the last guy. So um, winning a championship, I was just so excited, man. I was so happy, but happy is not the word. It was like, in fact, it was fear when I won a championship. Because I felt like it was a dream. I sat there and I was like, yo, I really don't want to go to sleep right now after we won the championship. Because I felt like it was a dream. Like there's no way. There's no way that this guy coming from where I came from Africa, came all the way here, met all these random people on the team, and we went on to win a championship in the best league in basketball.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you can't dream up. And it's a feeling that I think that everybody can experience if they really believed in their journey, if
Mm.
they understand that the great things in life are for everybody. It's for you too. If you face your adversity head on, if you face those tough times head on, you really can accomplish amazing things. Everybody on the team, the Golden State Warriors at the time, was Steph Curry had an ankle injury that almost took him out of the NBA. Draymond Green was nobody expected him to be that.
Mm.
Klay Thompson, people didn't even know who he was at one point. And if you look all the way down the line of the roster, everybody overcame some adversity.
Mm.
And so when you say like, oh, well, they're the best team in the NBA, yeah, of course, but they had to earn it. And so for all of us, that first championship especially, it was we hadn't won a championship since the 70s.
Yeah.
Golden State Warriors have had so many other talented people. And it's just, there's also a level of grit that comes with being the champion. There's a level of bounce back, a level of perseverance and not giving up and fighting through injuries. And there's so much that comes with winning a championship. And I hope that if anybody is hearing this, that they understand that your championship is coming. Matter of fact, the injuries, the tough times, the challenges, the adversity, they're actually a sign that if you push through, there's something on the other end.
Mm.
Because I think I could give you so many examples of this. And, I had a teammate in Sean Livingston. I don't know if you know who that is, but Sean Livingston was a top pick in the NBA. And he was playing with the Clippers at the time, had a devastating knee injury. This was in '07, '09, something crazy, right? He almost lost his leg. He went through the ringer to play ball again. He never gave up. Well, Sean was my teammate for the Golden State Warriors. We wouldn't have won a championship without Sean Livingston. Sean goes on to be a three-time champion in the NBA. Now he's an assistant. He's a front office executive with the Warriors. Actually, just took that job a couple months ago. I just say that I give you that story to say it wasn't. I give you that story to say that everybody is everybody's a superhero of their own stories. Everybody's a beast in their own stories. You have to believe it first of all, and that belief has to show itself in the battles, in fighting through these battles. So yeah, that championship meant more than just winning. It meant that this group of people who were rejects at some point in their careers could come back and be champions. it should mean a lot to a lot of people.
What was the difference between that team versus the team you guys set the record? Because that happens a lot. I know it's happened in hockey a lot. The team will win and then they'll just dominate the next year and then they won't win. And you know, that happens a lot, right? Like how different was that? How different was everybody's mindset? Like what was what was the difference in the factor of like, winning
Oh,
versus
are we
not
better
winning?
the next year? Oh, we were
Like,
actually better the next year. We felt like we wouldn't lose a game. It was a little unbelievable. Whenever we lost, we felt like, why did we lose that game? There was a certain anger. The only place to go when you're up is down. And even after we won, because like I said, with team of rejects, people were like, no, it was lucky. They're not
yeah,
going to do it again. And we came back the next following season with a lot of venom. And
yeah.
we just wanted to win. Matter of fact, after we won the championship, we were reading all these comments of people, and we were like, "Oh, we can't training camp to do this again." and so the following season was even better. We were even better. We played amazingly great. I think that there's also, there were injuries, there were things that came into play which were out of our control. Um, And at the end of the day, that's how life goes too. Sometimes
Mhm.
you win, sometimes you lose. And it says a lot about the team that was created at that point too, because they have gone on to win a couple more after that. So you just can't stop. You can't stop at any point. You can't stop at a point because you feel like that's not where, we won one year. The next year we went there and we were supposed to win. This time it's like, okay, they've won. Matter of fact, they were
Yeah.
already bringing the trophy out like, yo, you guys have won, you go celebrate.
Yeah.
And we lost. It was the biggest embarrassment. But at the end of the day, having people who have been through challenges to get to where they get to, the new challenge is not going to stop you. It's not going to cripple you. You'll be like, man, I've gone through so much more. I'm going to figure out a way to bounce back. And I'm proud of them. They did. They figured it out. I'm actually in the middle of my bounce back right now, which
Yeah.
I'm excited for.
Yeah, talk us about that's perfect. Let's talk about rebuilding the beast. Walk us through your journeys right now and what you're working on with that. Talk about maybe your podcast as well, all the good stuff you're up to now.
Rebuilding the beast is the concept I created as I started to work my way back. It was this idea that um, I had been through so many rebuilds, whether it's moving to America, whether it's discovering basketball, going to college, just playing the NBA. At each point, there was almost this theme of give me something and I will work with it and I will make something out of it. Now I was faced with an injury where I could either quit and stop and go do something else, or I could fight through and see if I can make my way back to playing again. And I knew it was going to be a long journey. I knew it was going to be at least a few years if I could play again. And like I said, let's see. And
Mhm.
so I said, I was rebuilding the beast. And the more I shared it on social media, they loved it. They were like, man, like you're so inspiring. And so people start reaching out to me. I'm talking about rebuilding my body and my knee and these parts of my body and like, discussing my fears and my pains and all these things and people who are dealing uh, with with recovery from sicknesses, people who are dealing with recovery from um, their drug abuse, recovery from a broken heart, all these different things. They were reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I'm just so inspired by your ability not you're not giving up. I see you working hard every day, and I don't know what it is, but it's making me want to keep going. It makes me want to keep going. How am I saying this? I'm messing up. But sorry, it's late over here.
No, man, it's
Um,
fine.
but it makes me keep pushing. And the more they saw my post, the more they felt like they could relate. And so I wanted to do that. And at the end of the day, I want my journey to mean more than just me. I want it to mean more than me playing basketball again. And if I can play basketball again, it would be a dream come true for me. But what would be an even bigger dream for me is if people see my journey and feel like they can keep going in whatever struggles they're facing. And so I decided, actually over quarantine, I had a bunch of time on my hands. And so I created this page on Instagram where I told people stories. People were talking about their comeback stories. They're going through adversity and remaking themselves, reshaping themselves. So we called it Rebuilding the Beast. This idea that you can go through a challenge and you can come out on the other side even better. Imagine if you proactively, we think about adversities. Adversities create great, like no great person has ever created something without adversity, right? Without fighting through adversity. And so we think about it that way. But when you're in the middle of your own issue, you're like, man, I'm never gonna make it out of this. And you start doubting yourself. Imagine if we can proactively, um, imagine if proactively we can look at our adversities and our challenges and say, this is actually creating something. If my championship comes, there is something, there is something on the other side of this for me. There's something amazing, there's something great if I just keep pushing through. And so if I figure if I tell enough of these stories, maybe people can't relate to me as a basketball player trying to play basketball again. Or maybe they can relate to you rebuilding as you're working on a podcast. It doesn't matter what the struggle is. It could be somebody who's dealing with a drug addiction. It could be somebody who's dealing with an abusive parents, abusive home, and trying to create a family of their own now after knowing only this abusive home as a kid, right? People are dealing with their own different struggles in their different ways, and they're rebuilding and figuring out ways to work with their adversities. So if you can create a platform and a community of people to be inspired, and to inspire each other and to heal each other's wounds, why not? That's the whole point of this. And so I want to use my journey to do that. So I want to go back to play basketball again. I am my own beast in my way. I'm rebuilding my own beast, but there's a bunch of other people who are rebuilding the beast, and I can't wait to tell their stories.
Dude, so inspiring, man. Honestly, it's so great to connect with you and kind of, see where you're at and hear, how humble you are and just like how much resilience you have. And dude, it's awesome. Thank you for being you, brother. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
showing up and just like really showing people that you just got to believe, you got to keep going, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, that's what we have. We got to believe in ourselves. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us.
I appreciate you having me, man. This is awesome. I'm glad. I hope this is. I tried my best to stay on point, but like I said, the time difference and being here at night, it kind of messes you up a little bit. I hope you have something to work with here
Dude,
tonight.
this was absolute fire, man. If people
All
want
right.
to check you out on your journey, um, we'll put it all in the show notes. Where's the best place to learn more about you and what you're up to?
Oh yeah, I have my social media. I have at Fezzyfel, Fezzzyfel, and Rebuilding the Beast at
Yeah.
Rebuilding the Beast on Instagram and all those different platforms. RebuildingTheBeast.com. This is something that I want to grow. It's something I'm actually really excited about. I try my best, or I used to not want to be on social media because I felt like it was this fake world. But no, you actually, there's so many people on there looking for a direction. And so
Yeah.
I want people to, I want to be a positive voice on there. I want to use it for good. So yeah, at Rebuilding the Beast is where you can find me.
Awesome, man. Okay, if we had to give the listeners one last takeaway and you had to unpack all the struggles, adversities, all the challenges that you've been through, and you had to say it as one lesson that adversity has taught you, what would that lesson be?
What is this? There's a, there's this thing I saw recently about if you have $863,000 and someone stole $10 from you, and I don't know if I'm doing the math right here. If they stole $10 from you, would you throw the rest of the money away? And it was just this idea of the amount of seconds that you have in a day, or let's call the 863,000 the number of days you have live, right? I don't know how the math goes there, but I'm just saying that whenever you have an adverse situation hit you, something goes wrong, it's just a little bit of your time, it's a little bit of your your life. Don't let that situation, and it's easier for me to say on this side, but I just want to inspire, and I hope just me saying it just gives you a little bit more push through. Don't let that little bit of thing turn into the rest of your life. You have a chance to make, and a choice that you can make at every stage in your life, to say, hey, you know, this happened and it sucks that it happened. And I'm going to cry, I'm going to grieve, but I'm not going to let it take away the rest of my life. I'm not going to let it stop me from being somebody who can save other people who are in my situation. I'm not going to let it stop me from being the great person that I can be. So I live by the motto, and I live by the quote, God gave you this mountain so you can show others that it can be moved. That's something that I think about all the time. And your challenge could just be a way for you to reach the world. And I don't know. I just want to inspire people to keep going.
Man, well said. Thank you so much, my man. I'm so excited to, you know, learn about your journey and be, talking to you about this. And it's great. And dude, I wish you the best, man. I can't wait to see you back playing, and I think it's going to be awesome. You're going to do it, and that's the story, right? Looking back and be able to show the journey that you went on, and that it's possible, and you're going
Yeah,
to
it's possible.
inspire a ton of people, man. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Lance, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you.